I'm Maven Huffman. I was a pro wrestler for 5 years. Here's everything I'm authorized to tell you about my time in the WWE. Wrestling was ruined for me as a fan the first days and being in a locker room. The moment you're back there and you see, it's just like, I love hot dogs. I don't want to see how they're made. Same with wrestling. It's once you see the ins and outs, once you see behind the, behind the curtain, it's just hard to look at it the same afterwards because you realize it's a show. I don't ever remember thinking that it was real. I always knew it was entertainment, and I was fine with that. Obviously, we're doing something that's athletic. Accidents happen. Things can happen while the show is taking place. But for the most part, you hope things go as they are written. A work is when two people are putting on a performance that isn't necessarily the truth. When they're playing characters, when they're putting out a product that is fiction. And the contrary to that is a shoot. And a shoot is when something is 100% real. If you notice, a ref always has an IFB in, and he's getting instructions from the back. Now, mostly the ref is there to keep you on time cues. If you're doing a televised match, you might have 6 minutes for a normal television match, and that's 6 minutes with entrances and your exits. That's 6 minutes altogether. And the ref, when you're out there, the more you wrestle, the more you learn how to have that internal clock. I would work with guys that they could know down to 30 seconds how long they had been in the ring. And the whole time we're out there, though, the ref is leaning down and he's giving us cues. I've also worked with refs. I remember in a pay-per-view in Puerto Rico, Mike Chioda changed the whole match because he had gotten through his IFB from Vince McMahon that they wanted me to cut a promo on the spot because the crowd they were coming at me so much. And I wouldn't have known to do that. I wouldn't have done it because I wouldn't have wanted to get in trouble. But the fact that it was coming from the ref, I knew that it was coming from the back. Once you get in the world as a professional wrestler, once you enter that life, nothing about life that as you've known it will ever be the same again. Every week, you're going to be leaving your house and you're going to be flying out to a new city. You're going to be renting a car and you're going to be wrestling house shows. And what do I mean by house shows? Non-televised shows that are strictly for the house. And after those shows, you're going to be getting in a car with someone that you're on the road with, and you're going to be driving to another city and doing it all over again. And the whole time, you're going to be still trying to eat good, and you're going to be still trying to get workouts in, and you're going to be having a good time. You want to go out young, have a little bit of money. You're going to want to party a little bit. It definitely was an intense schedule. And every month, we would have a pay-per-view every Sunday. And this was probably, I would say, over 100 guys and girls. The only thing that we would have taken care of on a weekly basis was our airfare. Once we landed in a town, every expense was on us. Rental car, food, hotel. And those expenses, you're on the road 4 or 5 days, they pile up. I mean, it costs a lot of money to go from town to town. And you might, and I've even done a video about it, you might make $5,000 a week, but it goes quickly if you're spending $1,800 on your road expenses. And then once you get home, you've got to make sure you pay Uncle Sam. And you might have a rude awakening at the end of the year if you don't get that taken care of. All the road is an extension of who you are in real life. If you are a gambler, you're going to find places to go place bets on the road. If you are into strip clubs, like I was at the time, I'm going to find strip clubs where I go when I'm on the road. Because also, you don't have anybody keeping you grounded. You don't have anyone that's probably helping you make better decisions. I know I ran into that problem a lot. You know, when I had a pocket full of money and no one telling me not to go places, yeah, I went. Every group has their groupies. Every group has the all too eager female fan base that's there wanting to meet the boys. For wrestlers, they're ring rats. For, I think, comedians, they're chuckers. For NASCAR, they're pit lizards. Every group's got them. Anytime anyone thinks that, you know, oh, you guys are rock stars, you guys have it made. No, we are not rock stars. The ring rats that would show up at our hotels, not necessarily the ones that are showing up for the Rolling Stones back in the day. It was never quite that easy. It wasn't like, I wasn't Ubering sex. You know, I wasn't door dashing ring rats. Anyone that ever wonders the benefits of steroids or questions do they really work? I'll encourage them. I'll show them a picture of my first promo shot when I got into the WWE, and I can picture it in my head as a blue background, and I got on my first cycle. And we were getting good stuff at the time. I had a doctor who was running my blood work and who knew exactly what to put me on to get the look that I wanted. Was I going to go out and win a powerlifting contest? Absolutely not. I didn't care about that. Was I going to look like $1 million? You bet your bottom dollar. And there was a period between my first promo shot and my second promo shot. I think 13 or 14 months passed, and I looked like a completely different human being. But I had been on, my magical mix the whole time I was there was Anavar and Winstrol. For whatever reason, like that stack for me, just it blew me up, and it made me hard, and it made me really lean. And it didn't really matter what I ate. I didn't eat bad at the time, but I could eat whatever I wanted, and I was still going to stay relatively jacked. I'll never say I was forced to do anything. I was encouraged by the office, and I had people from the office come up, and I still remember I'll never forget it. They said, "Have you looked into some of that creatine the boys are on?" Because at the time creatine was, it was a big drug, for years leading up to that. So it was kind of like a code word. And I remember going and asking some of the boys, I was like, "This is what they told me. Am I hearing what I think I'm hearing?" And they were like, "Yeah." And at that point, found a doctor, and it was a doctor a lot of the other guys were using. And like I said, we got some good stuff. It was good. And by the term good stuff, it just wasn't veterinary grade. It was human grade. But there was never a time I was ever worried about failing a drug test. In fact, I failed a couple drug tests and was just told, don't let it get out of control. Trust me, at 47, I realize I'm probably going to be, that bill's coming due. I've accepted it, but there's nothing I would change. I did what I did. I own my baggage, and I'm willing to accept the good and the bad that comes with it. In wrestling, there's a before Chris Benoit incident and after. And I was there at a time before. Chris was one of those guys that was backstage, and he was just aggressive, and you just knew he was a guy not to be messed with. But if you had his respect, that was a good place to be, because Chris was going to give you, he was going to help you if you needed it. But if you're not familiar, Chris, in I think it was 2007, he strangled his son and his wife, and then ended his own life. And one of the most tragic just incidents, and I'm not even going to say that wrestling ever endured, that just society had to endure. And for a minute, there's no part of me that you can make me believe that steroids played any role in it. I do believe CTE and head trauma, led to his going off the deep end, or at least assisted in it. And everybody can say that that they saw warning signs. Hindsight's always 20/20. Once the Chris Benoit incidents happened, a lot of things changed, and a lot of things changed for the good. Anytime you can keep guys healthier longer, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. And if you notice, you don't see the amount of wrestler deaths now like you used to. So it was a good change. If teachers made the money that teachers should make, I probably would have never left. I loved it. I loved the kids. I loved everything about teaching. And in fact, I was a high school baseball coach, and my first year and my second year, I wasn't even going to coach because it took time away from the teaching. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was during my second year of teaching that I found out. And one fateful night on Monday Night Raw, I heard JR say, and I'll never forget it, he said, "Have you ever wanted to be a wrestler?" And I literally felt like he was talking to me. I had to get myself to New York, to the World at the time, WWF New York, and they were going to be having auditions. I'd never been to New York. I'd never stepped foot in the Big Apple, and I was nervous to say the least, but I knew, why not? Give it a shot. If nothing else, I'll have a good story. Not thinking for a second that I would get picked for the show. I remember they had a big heavy bag laying on there. They would have people jump back and forth. And then as soon as you would get done with your calisthenics, they would have you cut a promo. And I had my promo completely memorized. I was gonna kill it. My promo was actually gonna be a good one. And before I started, as soon as I got done with my jumping jacks or whatever, there was the diva, Jacqueline. And I caught eyes with Jackie, and I just threw her a wink, thinking nothing of it. And that shut down the entire panel. They couldn't believe I had the audacity to wink at one of them. And I didn't get to give my promo at that point. At that point, didn't give any of the promo. I had Taz giving it to me. I had Al Snow, asking me, "What are you doing?" And I had Jackie smiling. But I still, and I will always believe that is what got me on the show. Just because that showed an extension of, they're not necessarily looking for a character that you think you are. They're looking for someone that they can pull out of you. And by showing them just that small little bit of charisma or whatever at the time, they knew it was something that they could work with. The first time I saw Vince, he came by Tracks, the training facility. We didn't meet him, and then to get to meet him, to talk to him that day, we might have shook his hands. But the first time I met him, it was towards the tail end of Tough Enough. They took us to his office in Titan Towers. You want to talk about intimidating, walking, at the top floor down this hallway, and you're leading towards Vince's office. It's just, how do I end up here? And I remember distinctly thinking, he's not near as bad or not near as intimidating as people make him out. He was warm, he was inviting, he was very cordial, he smiled a lot, and he was easy to talk to. Things would change once on the road, and once you're making money for Vince, or once you're costing him money. Now, how could you cost him money? If you're taking a slot and you're not getting a pop out of people, you don't have these people reacting. If they're on their phone rather than watching you work, if you're not a draw, people aren't paying money to come watch you do what you do, you're costing Vince money. Because every time he sends those trucks out to put on a show, every time he rents a a venue, every time he, you know, pays somebody to be on their television, that's money that he expects to be getting back in the form of your entertainment. So, you know, I found out really quickly. Vince viewed us as commodities. It disappoints me that people believe once they have a certain amount of money or a certain level of power that they can mistreat or abuse and use people. That said, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know what is true. I don't know what was consensual. And I do trust the fact that there is a judicial system in this country that hopefully will get to the finally get to some answers. And whatever, you know, I want whatever is coming to the guilty party to come to them. I think we have the iceberg of the story so far. I think we're seeing the tip of it and the body of it that is still yet to be revealed. I think it's going to be drastic. I think more people are going to be uncovered. I think more names are going to be put out, and we're probably going to read, if somehow possible, even more difficult facts about the case. Wrestler's Court it was a fun way on the road to just keep people accountable. I mean, and I've seen people go to court for, usually it's a dumb reason, but the whole time somebody's going to Wrestler's Court, and they try to hold it as a court session. We always, during my time, Undertaker was the guy who was leading it, and you're never going to meet anybody in a wrestling locker room that has more respect attached to them or to their brand or to just who they are than the Undertaker. If somebody finds themselves in Wrestler's Court, 99% of the time they're guilty of whatever people said they're guilty of, and they're trying to make a point. They're trying to prove a point to people. They're trying to tell them, hey, this happened. Don't let it happen again. Teddy found himself in Wrestler's Court. And this was back when, male enhancement products was just hitting the markets. And Teddy found, through a doctor, found himself with free Viagra. And to help the boys, he was giving them Viagra. But he was charging the boys. So he was making 100% profit off something he was getting for free. And this got out, the boys found out, wait a minute, you're charging us and then you're getting it for free? And it's, again, just fun way to tell them, just a fun way to tell them, we're on to you. And that's messed up, you're charging us. But typical penalty was whatever the two guys who were trying the case, whatever they were drinking, just bring a bottle of it. Or two. Typical penalty was just something fun of that nature. There's two ways to get color, and by getting color, I mean you bleed. There is gigging, and you might make a razor blade. I would always make it and put it in I would tape my wrist. I would always put it in my tape job, and then when it was time to get color, I would, take the razor blade out, knowing that my opponent is going to have the ref off, and basically he's taking the action to another side of the ring and making a production about everybody watch over here so that right here I could hit and get my color or start bleeding. Second way to get color is the hard way, and that is when you get hit and you're not supposed to get color or you're not supposed to start bleeding, and you do. And if you wrestle long enough, it will happen. Trust me, it will happen. You won't expect to get color, but most of the time when you get color the hard way, you run with it. You just, because heck, anytime you bleed, it looks more real. So, if you get, I remember I got hit with a trash can lid and the side of it cut my head. Well, I was trying to drive my head into the mat to force more blood out at that point. I'm bleeding already. Might as well try to make it look as good as possible. I was a bad guy. To this day, I only want to wrestle as a bad guy. But fans are known as marks just because they are the target of who we're trying to put a show on, who we're trying to suspend their belief for that limited time that we're out there. We exploit we exploit the marks in several ways. Whether it's, I remember I used to go to the ring, and as a heel, I would love when I was walking to the ring and I would see a couple, a guy and a girl, because I would always beeline over to them, and I would look at the girl and maybe wink at her or smile at her, knowing I'm pissing him off. I would walk away and just laugh and just giggle. That's how we can exploit the fans. I've been scared before in my life. I've been in, sporting events. I've had to speak in front of people. I've been in just high pressured moments, but nothing compares to how I felt hours before going out for my first wrestling match on SmackDown against Taz. I mean, looked like pajamas. I think it was track pants. I think I had like Nikes on. At the time, I didn't have wrestling gear, but that was part of the plan. They wanted it to look like this is the tough enough kid. He hasn't had time to go get wrestling gear yet. The moment I got backstage and knew that my match one was in the books, and I had, Vince McMahon, and I had, everybody back there that was what wrestling was at the time, standing up and telling me good job. And more importantly, I had Taz, telling me you did a good job. But at that moment, I knew I had made the right decision. In the Royal Rumble 2002, The Undertaker, the Phenom, I mean, the fact that he was allowing me to eliminate him from the Royal Rumble. So in this Rumble, there was a period of time when I was the only legitimate, participant that was still, fighting in this Rumble. And I'm as green, I'm as much of a rookie as you can be. The spot was, he had just finished eliminating the Hardy Boys, and he had gotten rid of Lita, and my music hits, I come out, he immediately, dispatches of me, and at a moment of weakness, when his back is turned, I threw and hit a drop kick, which the drop kick was a move I found out early and Tough Enough. That was, I still remember I threw my first 3 drop kicks, and Al Snow was like, that's your move, just because I could jump really good at the time. To this day, there's not many things that I don't think I could probably redo. I could probably redo everything a little bit better if you give me a second chance at it. Not this. This is the one thing that, if given the opportunity, I wouldn't want to change a thing about it. It was perfect. I was actually really kicking him, and his momentum and the way he took the bump out of the ring, it was perfect. And then him coming up and just the look of disdain and surprise on his face. I see why people to this day still bring it up. It was a great spot, and it was an iconic moment that I'm thankful that I had. I know I wouldn't have had the career I had without it, and I'm still grateful to Mark for giving me the opportunity. He didn't have to. The day that that I got the call that my services would no longer be requested, they gave me the reasons why I wasn't progressing in ring the way that they had hoped, and I couldn't argue with them. They were 100% right. Do I think I could have gotten to the level they wanted? I mean, obviously, I think I could have, but I understand why they were making that decision, heading in that direction. The hardest part about that was, and I remember like probably 2 or 3 days just not leaving my house. I didn't even go to the gym. And it was because I was scared for the longest time. I was, for 5 years, I'd been known as Maven the Wrestler. If I went anywhere, anybody was introducing me to anybody, Oh, yeah, that's Maven. That's the wrestler. Yeah, he's the or somebody would come up and see me. I'd be out in the bar or whatever, and you're that wrestler, and just having that identity, I loved it. It was great. I loved being known as that, and knowing that that was, not only being taken away from me, but being snatched from me. It was tough to deal with, and it was hard knowing that I was going to have to rebuild who I viewed myself as. In time, I would realize I'm always going to be Maven the wrestler. I'll never step foot in another wrestling ring. Doesn't matter. People are still going to view me as Maven the wrestler. But I had to get to the point to where I was okay with not being that guy anymore. Today I deal with daily headaches. Whether it be my car, whether it be my desk at work, whether it be my house, whether it be my bag I walked into this studio with, I have headache medicine with me in all those locations. I get headaches every day, and I'm not a doctor, but I realize it was probably due to head trauma. Maybe some unrecorded concussions that I had. I wake up every morning, and for the first 10 to 20 minutes that I'm walking around, I'm hunched over, and it looks like I was in a minor car accident the day before. And that's just life. That's going to be the way I am the rest of my life. I'm going to deal with back and neck pain for the rest of my life. About 7 years ago, I moved to a stretching routine that I do every day, and I take a good hour of my day every night at the end of my day, and I get down on my floor and I stretch every night, and I have found that helps, and that helps just with my back, with my neck, with everything. Oh my gosh, I had been taking pain medications since my time in the WWE, and I never had a problem getting them. It was funny that I never had to buy an illegal drug ever. I would just go to too many doctors, and anytime I would go to a doctor and show them my list of injuries, they were all too happy to oblige. And I was probably taking, I'd say probably 50 Percocets a day, and then at night using I was mixing somas with Ambien to go to sleep, and I was probably taking 3 Ambien and maybe 3 somas to go to sleep. I wasn't taking it anymore because I wanted to, because it was fun. I was taking it because I needed it. Because in order to get up and live a normal life, that's what I needed. I went to rehab before. I went to rehab in 2007, and recognizing the path I was going down, it was just unsuccessful. And when everything happened in 2012, I just I lost everything. I lost my house. My house was foreclosed on. I tried to keep afloat as long as I could, but the HSN job, that was gone, and I had to move. I moved from Florida to New York, and when most people say they're starting from scratch, I really did it, and I had to humble myself. I had to start, and go back to bouncing, and I had to get myself back up to where I am now, and it took some time. I have a weird family structure, and the reason I say weird, my birth mother, and I'll explain to you why I'm categorizing her as my birth mother. I never knew my birth father. My birth mother passed away when I was 2 years old. She committed suicide the day after Christmas in 1978. And not knowing my birth father, that left me almost up in the air. Who was going to take me? Well, my mom's brother and his wife, my aunt and uncle, they had, I don't know if they wanted me, but they were in line, and the lady that would become my mother I have pictures of her even before she was my mother, when she was my aunt, of her just bathing me, taking me. She always had a love for me. So when the opportunity arose where I needed a family, she was quick to step in. And at 2 years old, I have no memory of that time. So that's always been mom and dad. Yeah, growing up, I was the kid that was staying up till all hours of the night. And the only really WWF we would watch at the time was Saturday night's Main Event, which would come on. I still remember at 11:30. It would stay on till about 1 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock, NWA would go from 1 to 2. That was every Saturday night I would watch. The first match I ever went to was in the Richmond Coliseum. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. We're looking at 1985-ish. And Ric Flair headlined against Magnum TA in the main event. And probably 17 years later, I would wrestle Ric Flair in Dallas. And I still remember watching Flair come to the ring, and I'm standing in the ring already. And the fact that I went from being that fan that was in the audience to I'm now getting ready to wrestle the guy I went to my first match to watch, it was surreal. And I still remember the referee, Mike Chioda, had to come up and whisper in my ear, "Stop being a fan." And because I'm literally just sitting there in awe watching Ric Flair come to the ring. Man, what's even crazier is going to Richmond Coliseum to see my first wrestling match. I would one day wrestle in that same arena for the heavyweight championship against Chris Jericho. So it just goes to show life truly does go full circle. Now I work, I love what I do. I work for a company here in the city called Tip Top Capital. We are a capital firm. We help companies that can't get bank funding. We are kind of a middleman to helping them find alternative sources of funding to help them keep their doors open. And on the side, I have a small little YouTube channel that I've had a little bit of success with, that I'm having a blast with. I don't know how long that train's gonna be on the tracks, but I'm gonna ride it as long as it'll let me. I'm glad that my generation was 20 years ago, because what these guys do now, I couldn't do. They've taken it to a step just beyond what even I thought was possible in the ring. They're so talented now. So I'm glad my time was years ago, and the craziest moves I had to do was just a missile drop kick.